going on, everyone? It's Bales and welcome back to another video on the channel. It's Wednesday, which means it's AFL Fantasy Trade Talk ahead of round 8. We've got plenty of good targets this week, so it's a bit of a weird week. This one's not really too many sort of rookie downgrade options, so a lot of people are going to get probably a bit creative this round. So if you did bank cash last week, it's probably not a bad week to have banked cash because you can make maybe a couple of moves involving some really cheap guys. So, and we can see a couple of these cheap guys up at the very top of the trade target. So let's get stuck into it. So the most traded in players this week. So Rory Atkins is at number 1, 7.9k coach are bringing him in. It's actually a bit surprising he's the most traded in player. That he's obviously very cheap. He's down at, I think it's 386k, I believe. Yep, there it is. So it's, look, I don't know what exactly to make of the Rat. I've always thought he's not a bad player, but he just sort of never gets a crack at Gold Coast. He was good at the Crows. So he's going to make you some good cash if he stays in the team. I think he can score well enough. It just depends. He could be dropped this week, could be dropped next week. He's that fringe sort of 22, 23, 24, 25th player of the side with a couple of obviously injuries they've got. So I want to see one more week from him before I really start considering him as a target. I guess what you could do, if we're talking about getting creative, you could move a Lockie Cowan or an Allen Davey Jr. across to a Rory Atkins, play him on field, and worst case, you just move the bench rookie to Rory Atkins. So could you do something like that to maybe generate some cash? You could. It's a play. I'm probably not going to go down that play this week. I'll wait a week to see how he goes. If he plays well again this week, then that's something I will consider next week because he is going to be he's still going to be under 450k unless it goes, 120 this week, and then he's going to be near 500 next week. But at this stage, I'll be giving him a miss this week, and I'll watch him. If he plays well, he's a target potentially next week. But I can't really fault too many people if they do want to go to this pup. I personally wouldn't, just for this week. Braden Fiorenti's next. This one I am a bit more keen on this week. 7.3k to bring him in at this stage. I do like the pick. I know the CBAs weren't there. That's obviously the big concern, is that he was playing on a wing. Their numbers were inflated last week because they did play Richmond, so they got a lot of marks. I just think Fiorenti's shown if he's in that team, he can score and he finds a way to score. So I think even on a wing, I think he can still score well enough. And the two ways people are getting Fiorenti is they're going down from a Setterfield to get him, or they're going from a Ginbey, a Philippou, a Hollands, or someone up. The rookies, the Ginbeys and the Philippous and that, to go up, I can get on board with. I don't think I can get on board with going a Setterfield down to a Fiorenti, though. I feel Setterfield's got a better role. If you're trading Setterfield, you want to be going him up to someone. I wouldn't want to be going down to a Fiorenti. So I'm not a fan of that move. But if you're going rookie up to Fiorenti, I don't think you can really lose out too much because you're getting Fiorenti in from a rookie. Fiorenti's going to score absolute worst case scenario the same as a rookie, but he's not. He's going to be going, I think, minimum 70, and he's obviously got the upside of that 105, 110 in the correct role. At the moment, he doesn't have that role, but potentially last week they were giving a few guys more of a go. Fiorenti played well. I didn't watch the game, but I heard that he had some good rundown tackles as well, so maybe he gets thrown more in the CBAs and becomes more of that centre bounce midfielder, which means that his ceiling is high as anyone in the game because he's almost as good a fantasy player as you can get, really. He fills up the stat lines, and yeah, so he's a good target, I think, if you're going for a rookie. I'm not sure if I'd be going a Setterfield or someone down to him. Ryan Angwin, he's probably the pick of the rookies if you don't have Chincotta. So 5.7k coach are bringing him in. As I said, if you've already got Chincotta, I think he's the best that you can get, really. His job security again is a bit shaky. Like, I know Josh Fahey is in the wings. He's more of a halfback, but they have trialled Fahey in the VFL on a wing. So does Fahey come in for Angwin? That is definitely something that could happen this week, next week, or in a couple of weeks. But if you're looking for a rookie, I think he's probably the best of a bad bunch, really. Alex Chincotta, though, 5.5k coach to bring him in. If you don't have him, you've got to jump on him. As I just said then, we're light on with rookies, and when we've got a rookie right here that's got a good role, scoring well, Carlton are scoring a lot of points as a team, I think if you need these guys in your team. He's got a break even a negative 20 as well. 301 cases, a bit more expensive, but because you've seen it for 2 weeks now, you've got the proof that he's going to stay in the team for at least the short term. and he's scoring at a pretty good rate. So I'd be getting him in, even if he is only in for a week, right? Let's say, worst case, he gets dropped after this week. He's still going to make you probably 70-odd K this week. So his break-even's near 20. If he scores a 65, 70 again, he's going to make you, over 60K. So at worst, he's already made you a decent amount of cash. But I think he'll be in the team for a while because he's looked good in his 2 games. He's looked impressive. So, yeah. And he was probably, from all the reports, I watched the other game, obviously doing the other watch-along for the other game. But apparently people said that he could have had more than 77. Got unlucky with a couple of +6s that were called play on and missed a couple of handball receives. So, yeah, I think he's one of the best targets to bring in this week if you don't have him. Will Day, love him as a target as well. 4.1k coach are jumping on him. I jumped on him last week. Same with Chincotta. And they're 2 of the most trading players this week. And you can see why, Will Day back last week, first career game of 30 disposals. Scored only 100, had a lot of handballs, was quite early, but got more involved, especially in that back half of the second quarter and the third quarter. And we see these defenders every year that playing inside midfield, they score at a strong rate, and Will Day's doing exactly that, and he's looking fantastic. He's looking as good. He's looking the best that he ever has in his career. So I really like him as a target. He's cheap. He's still under 770. I think he's 768 in terms of price. Yeah, so break even 64. I think he's going to be a top six defender. If not, he's top 10, I think, with that role. So, yeah, I'd be jumping over him. Brody Kemp, 2.7k coaches. Reminds him and Rory Atkins are the 2 interesting plays this week. I don't know if coaches are jumping on them just because they've had tons and because they're cheap and because there's no rookies. Brody Kemp's job security is pretty shaky, I think. That Lockie Cowan was managed last week. Do they bring Lockie Cowan straight back in for Kemp? I don't think so this week because Kemp did play well from what I've heard. But I just don't think his job security is going to be there for the long term. I know he's got a low break even. He's going to make cash. He obviously can score. But, yeah, I'm not sure Brody Kemp is the guy I'd be targeting, personally. So, yeah, I'd probably be giving him a miss and looking at other targets. But he can score well, so that's obviously the interesting thing. But I'd be looking at other options, I think. Unless, again, a little bit like Rory Atkins, if we see it again this week, then maybe you can look at it next week, I think. Even though he'll be a bit more expensive, you would have seen it for 2 weeks. And that's why I'd be targeting him next week. Same with Roy Atkins as well. Sam Walsh, 2.5k coach to bring him in. Great option. He's expensive, but he's a good pod. We know how good of a scorer he can be. He's tackling a lot more as well this season. And last week he didn't have any tackles, but if I just get his match stats up. Yeah, he didn't have a lot of tackles, but he had a lot of marks. This week he had 5 marks, 10 tackles. If he puts a game together where he can have 8, 9 marks and 8, 9 tackles, he's going to put up some big scores. So I do like him as an option, and as a pod, not many people are going to be able to afford him. So if you can get to him, I don't mind paying up for him. He's just obviously a fantastic player. Tom Stewart, 2.2k coaches, love him as a target. Great matchup this week and next week, and he's got a pretty good run until his bye. He's got a lot of games at GMHBA Stadium for the rest of the year. He's at a good price. He's got the good buy at round 13. There's not really much more you can ask from Tom Stewart. So I think he's a great option. And yeah, I think he's one of the best targets this week. So if you don't have him, jump on board. Josh Weddle, 1.7k coach to bring him in. Again, we saw with Seamus Mitchell, he got subbed off at 44 and he was actually playing pretty well. So these Hawthorn rookies, I just don't think their job security is very good, unfortunately. He's got a low break even. Again, him and Ryan Angwin, probably the 2 rookies. If you were looking for a rookie, you could. But at 282, rookies like that, you want to be paying up for knowing they're going to be in the team for the next 3-4 weeks. I don't know if Weddle's going to be in there for the next 3-4 weeks. I know that they do rate him highly at Hawthorn. So that sort of gives me a bit more confidence compared to someone like Seamus Mitchell, who you didn't really hear too much of before he made his debut. Weddle, you heard stuff in pre-season. He was potentially going to be there round 1. Had a quiet pre-season game. So Weddle isn't a bad target. I just maybe watching one more week. Again, he'll be more expensive, but if he stays in the team for a couple more weeks, at least you'll know. So I'm not sure with Weddle. A lot of these takers fail if I'm not sure with this week. Tom Green as well, great target. If you can afford him, he's a good option. I think he's looking everything like a top 8 midfielder, averaging 113. He just came back last week, 136, looked great. Yeah, just under 900k. He's just going to keep rising as well. So, yeah, he's looking like an absolute beast. So, great option. Jack Steelswell, another good option at 1.3k. Coach is bringing him in. North Melbourne this week, instant reward you're going to get there. Is more expensive at 937 937. Still got a 117 break even, but I wouldn't be looking at the break even because we know he can reach that. So yeah, he's a good target if he can get up there. And the last one I just want to talk about is Darcy McPherson. So I've had a bit of a think about this over the last couple of days, and 747k, I'd be looking at it thinking I'm not interested. He's too expensive. He's gone up 200k in price essentially. I wouldn't be on him. The thing that intrigues me about him is the round 13 bye. So obviously we know round 13, Geelong and Gold Coast, the two teams are on bye, and then obviously round 12 you got 4 teams, and then round 14, 15 you got 6 teams. Darcy McPherson, he's scoring well enough that you could jump on him even at this stage and get in a round 13 defender, and if you have 3-4 of these round 13 players on bye with the bye, it could really help you in rounds 12, 14, 15. So that's why I haven't crossed him off my list as a potential option to look at. Defender forward flexibility as well is quite handy. As I said, he's scoring well. He's got a good role. He never comes off. Like, he's playing 88% game time minimum, and that was his lowest since round 3. And he's scoring really well, 96, 84, 90, 109, 119. Again, 2 good matchups there to score those, and he's had a pretty nice run that month. But he does have a pretty good run for obviously the next few. So Melbourne, West Coast. West Coast, I know, a little bit more restrictive for general defenders. I've had many monks say that. Brisbane, obviously a bit tougher. Then Bulldogs and the Crows, I don't mind those 2 matchups there. So I don't mind him as a play. I really don't. I think he'll still make cash, still has a low break even, and you can hide behind the fact he's a defender and he's got that good buy. So what can he average from here? I think he can go 85 to 90. I think based in the role that he's doing. So yeah, I don't mind him as an option. Even though when I've thought about it previously, I think, well, I've missed the boat. He's too expensive. But just that buy is the thing that maybe you pay a little bit extra for him because that buy. So just interesting. I did want to mention him just towards the end there. Moving on to the most traded out players. So I'm actually glad looking at these here. I know I've already done my trades in terms of like what I'm looking at doing. But it looks good to not have that many players with the trade out. So Ruben Jinby's the most trade out player, over 11k coaches are trading him out. Yep, I tick it off. His scoring rate is slowed down. The Richmond matchup this week is pretty enticing if you want to keep him for another week, which at the moment I think I am doing based on what I want to do with trades. But if you can get him to someone, I do like the play as well. Trading him out, I don't think it's a bad play. So Jinby, he can go. Will Setterfield, 8.2k coach are bringing him in. As a non-owner, I could just probably, it's a lot easier to look at it from sort of, not so much a biased point of view or anything, but not owning him. I would still be holding him. He's still got the role. He's shown that he can score well. I would be holding him until his bye, unless you've got nothing to do and he's like your worst issue and you can get him to a Laird, a Steele, someone like that, then I'd tick it off. You do that. But if I'm sure that a lot of people have got your Jinbys, your Philippus, even if you've got guys here we'll talk about in a sec as well on the list, I'd still prefer to trade those guys out. I think people are trading Setterfield because it's a lot easier to get him up to an Oliver, to a Steele, to a Laird, guys like that. But just because you can do that, I still think Setterfield, and let's say you can get a Jinby to a Butters, right? I'd still rather a Butters and a Setterfield over another rookie on field and an Oliver, because we know if Oliver puts out, he's looked fantastic, but if Oliver was to go just a low 100 or even a sub 100, and then your rookie goes 40, you're costing yourself. Whereas I think the floor of Setterfield and Butters is a lot higher than what, say, a rookie and premium is. But then again, you can look at it, well, if Oliver goes big, he's going to be captain. If a rookie can go 60, then why don't you do that? So you can look at it both ways, but I'd still think I'd hold Setterfield just maybe for another week and see how that goes with Stringer, and then you can maybe move next week. But again, as I said, if he's your worst issue, you can move him on and you can get into a Laird or something like that. I still like that play. Matthias Philippou, nearly 8,000 coaches getting rid of him. Again, I'm happy to get rid of him as well. Unlike Jinby, he hasn't really shown a ceiling. He obviously scored the 70 against Collingwood, which was impressive, but that's his only game, I think, over 55, I want to say. No, so you had the 66 and the 70. So you had two scores in back-to-back weeks that were pretty nice. But besides that, obviously 49-31, break even to 52. It's over his average. This is when we know we've got to get rid of these rookies. Obviously, the only caveat to that is with these rookies with the like red dots on the bench, do you trade, let's say, a Cowan or an Alwyn Davey Jr. or someone before a Philippou? Maybe you can't get quite to the guy that you want, but you're going to have a guy that's going to be there moving forward. That's the tough thing about this year. I would still be in favour of trading Philippou if you can get to someone really good. But if you can get someone else that's not playing or that's probably more risky getting dropped, then I would almost trade them just to have these numbers for the buyers. Because buyers are, 5 rounds away? We're creeping up. Well, yeah, you got round 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 5 weeks away. So we're going to have to really start thinking about having as many green dots as possible. I'm not saying trade these red dot rookies yet because Chess is a week away. Cowan could come back in. Alwyn Davey Jr. could come back in. A few guys could come back in. So it's interesting with this whole, obviously, buys coming up. This is always the most interesting time of year when coach can either wreck their team or they can be smart, and this is where they can start to make ground up leading into the buys and then the buys. So Philippou, I'd be happy to trade, but obviously that's probably squad dependent as well. Fergus Green, obviously scored an 18 last week. Again, very similar to Philippou. He's going to be playing. He's in the best 22. So, yeah, if you can still get him down and Jinby up to someone good, I'm still in favour of doing those moves, but I'm just saying, like, look at your bench. Like, you don't want to be trading out Fergus Green on your bench if you've got all red dots, and then you trade in, say, Angwin gets dropped next week, then you've got a full bench of red dots. So it's squad dependent, but if you've got a pretty healthy bench, then I'm happy to do it. Or if Fergus Green's on your field, then obviously you go. Yeah, that's probably the better way of determining. If Fergus Green and Philip are on your field, you then go them up, I think, unless you can go a guy on your bench up and then bench a Fergus Green or Philippou. Cam McKenzie, this is someone I would be happy to trade regardless because he's not actually in the team at the moment. He's not playing. And the last couple of weeks, he's been in and out. So even if he comes in, he's no guarantee to be staying in there for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. So I'd be happy to move him down to if you don't have Chincotta, as I mentioned, or a Angwin or something like that. There's also been a few rumours on Twitter about Blake Drury making his debut for North Melbourne potentially this week. And if that was to happen, he would probably be one of the most traded players this week because he would be basement price, 200k. We heard about him in the preseason, so someone to keep an eye on. Andrew McGrath. So you can see that when it says owned, I'm not there anymore because was an owner. At this stage, I'm looking at trading him out. So he's been a very frustrating own. It's funny, but he's one of the, obviously in the leadership groups, I think he's co-captain, I think. If he's not co-captain, he's a vice-captain at least, because I know that he was captain when Merritt missed. He's just 360s in the last 4 weeks is what really concerns me, is that, yeah, and I know that they've been pretty tough matchups. Geelong, Collingwood, and GWS, Collingwood, and Geelong have been the three that he's gone sub-70. But the fact that he's going sub-70 is that you can get, I would rather play a Chincotta at D6 and go McGrath to a big midfielder or even a Dawson or something like that than hold him. He's dropping cash, but it's not at a rapid rate, but it's just slowly chipping away back to 600k. Like it was 619, 700, 680, 662 now. Next week could be 650, 640, and he's just going to slowly keep dropping unless he can put a big score up, which I don't see him doing when you've got Nick Hind, you've got Massimo D'Ambrosio, you've got Mason Redmond, Jordan Ridley, all these sort of half-back guys that like to get the ball. I just don't see him scoring a 110 on my head and then being a mistake trading out, especially with Port Adelaide this week, tough matchup. Brisbane at the Gabba, tough matchup. And yes, okay, he comes into a pretty good 3-week stretch of Richmond, West Coast and North Melbourne. But I think I'm just happy to trade. I'd rather get off of him now and almost rather keep a Jinby, who I know that Jinby could drop cash, but we have seen he can actually score an 80, which means he may stop. And Richmond, he's got a pretty good next month, Jinby. So that's why I'm almost looking at this thinking, well, he's got a good next month. Hold him for one more week. If he has another poor one again, then I can trade him next week. So that's why, in my own personal situation, again, your teams might be different, but McGrath, I think he just hasn't played that well enough. I think you can trade. Alwyn Davey Jr., I think he could come back in this week. I know that Brad Scott was just talking about managing these young players. I think Alwyn Davey Jr. is in their best 22. So I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back in. I think he's still got a low enough break even. Yeah, 42. He could pop a 60 and then keep cash gen going. He's not worth enough, I don't think, anyway. So I don't think he's worth trading out personally. Lockie Cowan, a little bit the same, but I'd be more in favour of trading a Cowan just because Carlton have so many of these defenders that Cowan, is he going to come back in? I think he could come back in at some point. He was listed as managed, not dropped. But yeah, if you can get him to a Fiorini or something, I'm definitely in favour of doing something like that. Will Phillips, yep, you can definitely trade him. He's been in and out of the side, and yeah, I'm just not sure exactly if he's going to be staying in. Don't know if he's injured or not, but yeah, I'd be trading Will Phillips. Ollie Hollands, I'd rather trade a few of these guys above him before Hollands, because at least Hollands has got a good role. He's in the best 22, still has a low enough break even. He can still make you a little bit of cash, so I'm holding him. He's a good loop this week as well. Plays that Friday night game. I'm sure most coaches have got a red dot on their bench to potentially loop him on if he was to have a good game. So I'm in favour of holding Hollands for at least another week. Then you got Noah Longs here as well. I'm happy to trade. He's not in currently team. He's obviously injured. What's his price at? Is he even worth enough? 322. Again, he's not really worth enough, is he? He's almost just hold him, because I think when he comes back in, he probably is back into the team. So you probably could hold him. Mitch Duncan, I wouldn't trade him at this point. He's down at 727. I know he's got a really high break even, but look, his next two, surely he can go 90 plus in both those games. And you're locking in those bad scores, getting off him. What if he then goes back-to-back 110s? Then you've missed out. So I would just hold him. I'd upgrade these rookies instead of Mitch Duncan. Again, if he's your worst issue, then you can trade him if you can get him to someone better. But I'm pretty sure a lot of people got your Jinbys, your Philippus, your Fergus Greens. Guys like that I would rather fix on field than a Mitch Duncan. Darcy Wilmot, I'm not sure I'd trade him either. Again, you can loop him this Friday night. He's playing. Still has a low break even. Responded after his last game. Carlton this week, he's got a pretty good 3-week stretch. He's in the best 22. Most people have got him on the bench as well, and he could be important for these bye rounds when we're going to need numbers, because he's got that first bye, which isn't too bad. So I'm not opposed to holding him, but again, if he's on your field, you can get him up to someone better, then I can definitely see that's not a bad option. Then the last one here, actually I'll go these last two here, because Constable here, I'm still surprised he's actually owned by a few people, but I guess people just had carnage and haven't been able to get rid of him. But Liam Baker and Liam Stocker. Liam Stocker you can definitely trade. He has got North, though. That is the one thing. He's got Adelaide, so he has actually got a good next couple of games. So again, if you've got other issues, you can trade them first. But if he's your worst issue again, you can trade him. Same with Liam Baker. That role, just Jaden Short's back there. He seems to be the main guy back there again. Rioli's also been affected. So Liam Baker, I'd be happy to jump off of him as well. And he's at a good price that you can get to someone, because he's got to break in a 110. If he drops another 50 or 60 playing forward like he did last week, then he's going to drop under 700k. And he's going to be a little bit like McGrath. He's just going to slowly start creeping back down to 600. So I think it's just better to get off these guys and get them to... You can get him to a top 6 defender easily. Sinclair's like 130k more. You've got cheap guys that you could look at. So I'd be looking at those options instead. So they're the options this week. Went through a little bit more in depth actually with a couple of players. But that's okay. That's all good. My top 5 targets for the week. So we'll go trade in. So I think number 1, and this is based on if you don't know any of these players, I think number 1 still Alex Chincotta. As I mentioned before, these rookies, we don't have enough of them this year. When they're good scoring, they can play on field, and they look like their best 22 at this moment, I think you've got to bring them in. As I said, if he's in the team for 3 weeks, he's still going to make you probably 120 plus K. So he's going to get up to over 400. Even if he only plays 2 weeks, he'll be over 400. So he would have made a lot of cash, and you can always get rid of him in a couple of weeks if he gets dropped, but I don't think he will. He's looking good, so he'd be my number 1 target. Number 2 for me, I'm going to put Tom Stewart. I just think, again, if you don't have him, the buy is really, really handy at round 13. So there's not many Geelong players that we're looking at as targets. Tom Stewart's the obvious one. He's scoring well. He's taking all the kickouts. He's got good matchups to come with Adelaide this week, who he scored a 169, I believe, against last year at GMHBA Stadium. Richmond, good matchup. Freo's not too bad. GWS isn't too bad, and it is at GMHBA. And then also Bulldogs, who we know love to give points up to defenders. So I just think his next 5 weeks are not bad, especially the next 2 are really good. Good price. I just think you can't go wrong. So Tom Stewart will be number 2. Number 3, I think I'd probably put Will Day as well. If you don't have him, he again, good price. The buy, obviously not as much. He's got around 14 buy, but playing inside midfield, 768k, still cheap. I still think getting on him is a good move, so I would be looking at him as a target. Number 4, this is where I probably would put Braden Fiorini. I think Fiorini's a good target this week. He's not the knockout pick that maybe a few coaches thought maybe Toot Miller going out will be, but if you're going a rookie up to him, he's going to score better than the rookie. He's got the good buy as well. I mentioned is very, very handy with a guy like Fiorini, because if he doesn't make enough cash by then, as long as he's got that buy, you may be able to hold him past, because we don't know how long Toot's going to be out for. So short term, I think Fiorini's a good target. I think he'll make good cash. He's got a break even of 31. If he scores another 100, he's going to be 600k next week, and he's going to hopefully rise to 700 and hopefully more than that. So yeah, I really like Fiorini to target at number 4. And then number 5, it's obvious. This week, again, most weeks this is very team dependent, but I think you could throw a blanket over a few of these guys. So you've got like a Sam Walsh, you've got Jack Steele, you've got Tom Green, you've got Clayton Oliver, if you can get up to him. I still think he's a bit expensive, but he's got good matchups. Rory Laird, I really like as a target. A few people might be scared off by the fact of this obviously. Is there an injury? Who knows? I don't think there is. He looked fine on the weekend. Just looked fatigued more than anything. Geelong is obviously a tough matchup, but he's got a good run after that. We know what Laird can do. He's been pretty good the last 3 weeks after a bit of a quiet start, back to all 3 scores in a row over 110. And yeah, this is the start. This is the time of year when Laird starts really getting. So I could sneak Laird into number 5. Obviously, as I mentioned, Tom Green, great as well. And then, yeah, Dust McPherson's a bit of a smoky as well that I don't mind at that 747k that coaches could look at with that round 13 buy. He's going to rise in price, and he's got a good role. And, yeah, they do look to him for that chips in the background, in the back line. So, yeah, I like him. So, in terms of my trades, what I'm looking at doing, I'm looking at going a McGrath and Philippou out. So I'm looking at going Philippou up to Fiorini. I've got cash in the bank, which is obviously very, very handy. So I'm looking at going a Philippou up to Fiorini. Then I'm looking at going McGrath, and I've sort of got a bit of a pick of who I want to get. I can save a lot of cash again and get a Butters or a Rochelle or a McPherson, or even a Simpkin, who I'm looking at as well as a target that's dropped cash. I could save cash there, or I can go, obviously, Callum Mills. Do I want to go a week early on him? I'm not sure. I'd rather wait for him to see a good score. But the one I'm looking at, I can get anyone, I think, from 944k. So Jack Steele and Jordan Dawson are the 2 guys that are on my task. I've obviously got Rory Laird already. I do like Dawson's St Kilda and Bulldogs matchup coming up in after this week. So Geelong this week. Does he get tagged by O'Connor this week? Maybe. Does he get a tag here against St Kilda? Then he's got some good matchups here as well. I'm a little bit lighter on that round 14 buy, so I don't mind bringing a guy like him in. And yeah, so I like him and Jack Steele as options. Can't quite get to Sam Walsh, but I'd almost rather save a little bit of coin at this point and continue to upgrade. So I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing with that second trade. At the moment, it's Jordan Dawson, who I've put into my side, but I'm not sure if that's going to stay or if I'm going to change. But I'll obviously let everyone know later on in the week. So appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Let me know in the comments below what you guys are doing with your trades this week, or if you've got any trade questions, let me know what you guys are wanting to, guys are looking at doing. Smash the like button if you've enjoyed the video. Obviously that does help out sort of the algorithm and channel and stuff like that. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do. Bottom right hand corner, I think it was 974 the last time I checked. So 26, we're creeping. We're so close. 26 away. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do, so we can hit that 1,000 subscriber milestone. That'd be very much appreciated. Notifications, turn on the bell so you don't miss when I go live or upload any other content in the future. Social media links in the description below, and I'll be back with you guys on the Friday Twitter space with good old Tim as usual. So we'll be doing that an hour and 20 minutes or so before lockout. I'll put that on the socials on Twitter, so make sure you go and follow me there to keep up to date with all the stuff. Follow AFL Fantasy Fanatics, and then wherever you podcast AFL Fantasy Fanatics, and go listen to the podcast. It was a good one with Dossie and Jake from Hat Chat. So we had a good chat with those guys recapping round 7. So make sure you go and check that out. So until the Twitter space on Friday, I'll catch you guys then. So I'm out. Cheers.